Hi everyone, and welcome back to Up in the Air, and welcome to spring. I'm Ryan Breton.
And I'm Meredith Fish. On this week's episode, we'll continue to discuss the cold weather. Dakota will have details on how the cold will remain in our forecast until next week.
And so late in the season, many are getting sick of turning up their thermostat. We'll have some money-saving tips when it comes to heating your home.
Plus, we'll have another report from our weather risk and financial markets class regarding the soybean and natural gas market.
But first, Meredith, let's get to the latest news and information from the Weather Enterprise and Climate World. Here's this week's Update in the Air.
The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration recently created a map showing the wind anomalies over January and February. In the North Sea, a remarkable 20 storms with hurricane-force winds formed in the region. Most of these storms all tended toward Eastern Europe, with areas reaching as high as 12 miles per hour, higher than the 1981 to 2010 average. Between October and March 8th, a total of 43 hurricane-force storms pounded this area. This storm track is unusual for these storms, as generally they stay closer to the Greenland area, posing little threat. But thanks to changes in the tropics, these storms moved south and brought high winds, powerful storm surges, and heavy rain to Germany, the UK, and Belgium, which all sit alongside the North Sea. The UK Met Office said that through these 2 months, this was the most exceptional period of rainfall in the last 248 years. Thank goodness our winter was nothing like that.
The Saffir-Simpson hurricane scale is well known for assigning a category for a hurricane based on its wind speed and strength. On Saturday, Robert Simpson, a meteorologist behind the scale, was celebrated at a luncheon in Washington, D.C. that was attended by meteorologists who traveled from as far away as Florida and Texas. The Explorers Club of Washington group held the event that was emceed by legendary D.C. meteorologist Bob Ryan and organized by Jack Williams, the former USA Today weather editor. Simpson turned 101 years old in November and championed hurricane research for several decades, serving as the director of the National Hurricane Center from 1968 to 1974. The hurricane scale was introduced in 1973, initially focusing on wind, pressure, and storm surge. This initial scale was used for decades until 2009, when the NHC decided to modify to eliminate pressure and storm surge from the categories, making the scale purely based on a hurricane's wind.
Recently, dozens of mysterious ozone-destroying chemicals may have been leaking from industrial plants or being used illegally, undermining the recovery of the giant ozone hole. Scientists now identified and measured 4 previously unknown compounds of CFCs and HCFCs, which are known to destroy ozone. 2 of the new compounds are the most concerning, as though their levels are low now, they are actually accelerating. Because the chemicals take decades to break down, their impact on ozone and climate change is long-lived. This paper reminds us to continually monitor the atmosphere for these gases, which could destroy something we have worked hard to protect. Despite all CFC production being banned in 2010, the concentration of one is actually rising. The source of this chemical is a mystery, but it may be used in the production of agricultural pesticides. These 4 newly identified compounds are expected to trap heat thousands of times more than CO2.
Here comes El Nino. The waters of the Central Pacific Ocean are projected to warm this year, and we are entering an El Nino pattern, according to NOAA. El Nino is widely known, but its importance is not necessarily known by the general public. Meteorologists have studied the pattern and its impact on global weather for decades. Meteorologists with the National Weather Service believe that El Nino could limit hurricane development in the Atlantic this year, lead to much-needed rain in California, and potentially a milder winter next year. Simply put, some will benefit by changes in the jet stream driven by El Nino and others will not. It's far too early to project how strong this El Nino will be. The last 4 have been weak or moderate and have had fewer impacts on global weather. It's something we will certainly be watching in the months ahead. And that's Update in the Air for this week. We'll be right back with more after this. And thanks for staying with us here on Up in the Air.
Up next, Kevin Turk and Kyle Jola from the Weather Risk and Financial Markets class will bring us the latest on the soybean and natural gas market.
Hi, I'm Kevin Turk.
And I'm Kyle Jola.
And today I'm going to be talking to you about natural gas futures prices and how the weather, among other aspects, affects these prices.
And I'm going to discuss soybeans futures prices and this week's outlook on the market.
First, let's establish what a futures contract is. By definition, a futures contract is a contractual agreement to buy or sell a particular commodity or financial instrument at a predetermined price sometime in the future. Weather is one of the most important factors that determine the natural gas futures price. These series of graphs show the temperature anomalies or departure from normal for North America over the next 4 weeks. Notice that in the next 2 weeks, temperatures in the northern and eastern U.S. will be between 3 and 10 degrees Fahrenheit below average, likely causing natural gas prices to rise. However, in weeks 3 and 4, we see that temperatures across much of the U.S. begin to return to normal, with even some slightly above average temperatures. This would likely cause a decrease in natural gas prices. Another important factor in determining the price of a natural gas futures contract is the amount of working gas, or available gas, stored in the ground. The EIA's weekly natural gas storage report for the week ending March 7, 2014 shows a withdrawal of 195 BCF, or billion cubic feet, dropping the total storage to 1,001 BCF. This is a 48.9% decrease in storage from last year and a 46.2% below the 5-year average. Due to having one of the coldest winters on record, you can see that the current inventory level is well below the 5-year minimum. The June 2014 natural gas contract price has been in a bullish or upward trend since November 2013, with a slight bearish trend in the last few weeks. As of Monday, March 17, 2014, the current price of the June natural gas contract is $4.53. Now here's Kyle to talk about the soybean market.
Thank you, Kevin. Soybean prices have dropped significantly, 66 cents since the release of the March WASDE report on March 10th. The WASDE is a monthly report published by the United States Department of Agriculture, providing comprehensive forecasts of supply and demand for major crops around the globe and livestock within the U.S. Soybeans opened at $13.88 on Monday, March 17th. The price drop was mainly due to two reasons, one being due to the scare that the wet weather in the major growing regions of Brazil would hurt the production yield for the crop and drove soybean prices up, but the WASDE revealed that the soybean yield remained unchanged. Wet weather during harvest season can cause problems for harvesting due to flooding of the crops and difficulty getting the machinery into the fields. And the other being, the May soybean contract lost 4.74% on the week of March 10th amid fresh concerns over a slowdown in demand for U.S. supplies from China, the world's largest consumer of soybeans. This provided some relief to the price because the U.S. soybean exports are not as strong as earlier projected, estimated at 145 million bushels, down 5 million bushels from last month's estimate, but 4 million bushels higher than average. However, this year's soybean exports are still up 20 million bushels to a record 1.53 billion bushels, and U.S. soybean inventories are still expected to reach critically low levels by the end of the season. The outlook for the weather for this week in Brazil looks favorable for harvest, with drier than average conditions expected in the major growing regions of Brazil, which shouldn't cause too many concerns for harvest. There are some logistic issues in Brazil this week due to a record soybean production clogging ports, causing difficulty in getting the crop from the growing regions to port. This may put pressure on the U.S. demand from China until the ports clear up in Brazil. The wait time for loading at Port Paranagua, Brazil's second largest port, is 75 days. This is down from last year's wait of 125 days, but still causing major problems. This, coupled with the demand from China, the market looks to be bullish this week. For Up in the Air, I'm Kyle Jola.
And I'm Kevin Turk.
Welcome back. And Meredith, I know you escaped the cold and traveled someplace warm over spring break, right?
Yes, I was in Florida and the weather was fantastic.
Well, welcome back to winter, and it doesn't seem like it wants to let go here in Pennsylvania anytime soon. And from what I hear, no warmth is in the forecast.
I do not like that at all. But joining us with all the details and more is Dakota Smith. He is at our climate wall with this week's Climate Outlook.
Well, thank you, Ryan and Meredith. And yes, unfortunately, that snowpack is here to stay across the Northeast. If you're a Penn State student, hopefully you got the chance to go down south, somewhere warmer, maybe even another country or continent. Meredith went down to Florida, which has actually seen temperatures 1 to 2 degrees above normal for this time of the year. Now, here in the Northeast, still got a pretty solid snowpack out here across the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. This swath of snow down here is from a snowstorm that happened Sunday night into Monday very recently. They got anywhere to 6 to 10 inches down there. across the Baltimore and D.C. suburbs. Actually, at my house, my hometown in Eldersburg, Maryland, just a little shout out, we got 6 inches of snow from this storm. So a pretty good snowfall for the area. Now nationally, we're at 24% covered in snow. That's down significantly from 2 weeks ago, where we're at 60%. That's pretty evident out here in the Ohio Valley, where this was all snow just 2 weeks ago. And that's cutting even into central Pennsylvania, as we haven't seen much snow in the past week or so. Out now to the west, much of the same that we've seen this season on up in the air. The Rocky Mountains have a very, very good snowpack, so hopefully that'll extend their skiing and snowboarding season, as we're seeing a pretty nice snowpack out here in Colorado and Utah. Now on the west coast, Pacific Northwest still has a pretty good snowpack, moderate snowpack out here in California. Hopefully whatever snow they can get will help in the spring and summer months, as that drought is going to continue at least for the next few months. Hopefully they get relief soon. On our temperature outlook, it's a sad story. I know none of us really want to see the cold weather anymore unless you work for a ski resort. It's really centered out here in the upper Midwest and Northeast, much below average temperatures for this time of the year across the entire Northeast and central part of the country, even down into the deep South. That really shows you the extent of the cold air. It's extending really across the entire eastern half of the United States. Pretty remarkable winter we're seeing in the United States. Now out here in the west, much of the same that they've seen this year, above normal conditions. It's actually a little nicer. They were seeing quite above normal temperatures over the past couple weeks. Just a little blip out here, a little hotter than the other areas. Now on to our precipitation outlook. It's kind of just a blob of wet weather. The entire eastern half of the United States, above normal conditions. Maybe see a little more up here around the Great Lakes. And even in the west, this extends all the way up here into the Pacific Northwest and the northern half of California, even going to see above normal precipitation, which is great to hear. As I mentioned, the drought has been getting them pretty hard. Just a little blip down here in the southwest in Arizona and New Mexico, below normal conditions for this time of the year. So hopefully you got a nice little idea of what the 8 to 14 day outlook looks like for your neck of the woods. Brian and Meredith, back to you at the desk.
Thanks, Dakota. And with the cold weather remaining in the forecast for the foreseeable future, we have some tips on how to save money while heating your home.
Brad Gay from Penn State's Weather Communications class is here now with the details.
While it's certainly been chilly this winter, there are plenty of ways that you can stay warm at home while also cutting back on that hefty heating bill. The average Pennsylvanian spent $2,500 on energy in 2009, and more than half of that went to heating. By turning down your thermostat by just 10 to 15 degrees when you're sleeping or out of the house, you can save up to 10% each year. Consider investing in a programmable thermostat that you can adjust right from your smartphone or computer to make it even easier. Remember, you can also save energy by turning down your hot water heater, unplugging devices that you aren't using, and replacing inefficient light bulbs. New LED bulbs use up to 80% less energy than traditional incandescent bulbs, and though they are a bit more expensive, a single bulb can last for decades. For even more money-saving tips, be sure to check out the Department of Energy's website at energy.gov. For Up in the Air, I'm Brad Gay.
Thank you, Brad, and we'd like to thank you for tuning in this week. We hope you enjoyed this episode featuring a variety of news from the Weather Enterprise and Climate Science community.
We'd also like to thank Kevin and Kyle from the Weather Risk class for their report tonight. We'll be back right here next week with more great content from students here at Penn State.
And hopefully we'll have some warmer weather to discuss too.
Yes.
In the meantime, I'm Ryan Breton.
And I'm Meredith Fish. We'll see you next time up in the air.